Here's a couple more directional things in here, and some lines that are created by the axes of the aircraft. And we can take a look at at how dynamic they are. I mean, you take a look at the first one here, and you can see how there's no space. It's very, very flat. It's a down shot. It's very, very flat, and we have these diagonals on this. So the diagonals are quite dynamic in kind of a two-dimensional space. Does that make sense? Okay, and so that's the first part of the scene. Then you follow this aircraft. Camera follows the aircraft, and you can see that we're starting to get a little bit more perspective in the runway, and now it's like symmetrical right up the middle. So this is, by becoming symmetrical like this, anything that's symmetrical tends to kind of tone it down a little bit, but you get these converging lines. Okay, so that's the fact that it's centered kind of diminishes these converging lines, okay? But we feel a little more space here. And then we get a situation like this, where we get this deeper space, and they all converge into these strong angles this way, okay? Which is strong, deeper space than you get here, okay? And here. The only difference is in here you get strong 2D diagonal shapes. Okay, these sit within that picture plane, or sit on the picture plane, and there's strong diagonals, but they're very, very flat. The space is very flat. Here we have more spatial depth, okay, and some converging lines that imply that spatial depth, but we're symmetrical, so it still stays a little flat. We're symmetrical here too, and we have an extreme converging lines. So in one shot, we change the dimension, or change the quality of how we read the image within one movement, which makes that pretty dynamic in one shot. If you're dealing with with a single painting or a drawing, you have all of these options. You can do one or the other or the other. You've got all these options to kind of play out. Here's a couple images as well. With different focal areas. One, you have a lot of, on the top one, you have all these converging lines. You have a vanishing point right where he is. He's walking right from the vanishing point. And even though it's extremely off to the side of the frame, that gives you, it gives you a strong focal area, okay? Because everything is converging towards him. The one below is more stacked, okay? There's the perspective lines are not going towards him. They're going up off the frame, but they're using tonal contrast and kind of changing things up. And I'll show you the difference there too. In the bottom image, it's more of a case. The top image is really obvious. The top one is really obvious because we've got this guy walking like this, okay? And everything is converging on there. The paint on the lines, the windows, the windowsills, the ground here. These all coming out like this. The lights, more lights, columns, and so on, okay? So all of these things are kind of pushing you back towards this character here. In the other one, we don't have that same kind of complete spatial depth. In this image, the convergence of these lines, this is going out of the frame. These are going out of the frame this way. What we do have is overlap. We have these overlapping shapes like this, okay? But we have this tonal contrast. Now he's the only one in here, and he's well lit up right in here. So we have this going on right in here. But if you also look at it, there's a lamp that goes over like this, and there's elements that are in here, there's more, we'll say, clutter around him, something at an angle like this, and then, machine sitting like this. Okay, so you can see that there was a lot of things, and then there's another lamp that's placed like this, and this what do you call them? The gooseneck parts of these lamps work as directional elements as well, and then there's other things set in here, and this is what a cinematographer and, if they have like a set dresser, that kind of a thing, they would work all these things out so that your eye goes here instead of anywhere else. You might have this element in here that comes off the frame, a little briefcase. Okay, again, kind of pushing your eye in here, and then another framing element there. So all of these things are going to help move your eye around, and your highest contrast is going to be in and around this character. So it's a different handling of space than this deeper space here. But still, it's a way to use these elements to draw your eye and move your eye around in that composition. Here's a couple of different eye lines. They're sitting at different places, and they might be looking at a similar place. But you can see their eye line might be going to the same place, but her head is tilted down, his head is tilted back, and their eyes might go into the same place. So they might be it looks like they're judging somebody and have clearly different opinions about the situation, maybe both suspicious, but they're both, clearly observing something, you can see. Also, the interesting thing I think about this is the cinematographer Roger Deakins. Take a look. He put he framed the outside, so he kept them framed within a frame. He didn't allow the outside edges, the two outside edges, be the flattest thing in there. He put elements in the frame in order to frame the characters, or kind of cradle the characters a little bit more. So it was purposely set up kind of using these elements. And he did it over and over. Here's another one where you can see there's a difference on each side. I'll show you this. And what I want you to do for next week is find a bunch of images and look for how they're set up. Look for how they use these lines or directional things or break things up, like this one. We have one, the door jamb here, and then the door in here. But this one's broken up with a little bit of a frame and something like this, and then the lamp that comes in here. So they aren't symmetrical from side to side because there's more breakup on this, you see? And this going into the lamp gives you this directional turn like this, and then you have the shadow on the ground, the chair, the legs of the chair this way, right? The other thing is you have these chairs back here, and they're turned away. All of the chairs are turned away. We got an empty room, and all the chairs are turned away from you. That's pretty cold. It makes a pretty cold, stark environment. And this chair is in shadow. There's only a little bit of light hitting this one. And this whole area back in here, there's this one, the back of this is in shadow. Right? So there's only bits of these things that are showing. That makes a pretty cold environment. So again, in these cases, this is kind of an emotional, a way to, get more emotion in a shot like this, just with an empty room. Okay, it's pretty interesting. It's just so stark. Same thing here. In this case, he's using the doorway in the back to help close the frame. Leonardo DiCaprio on the left is closing off the frame here, but he's keeping Kate Winslet held in this frame by showing the door jamb in the back. He could have cropped in closer, but keeping that element back there would help frame her in. And we can look at the shadows as well. You can look at his eye line, her eye line, the perspective on here, the shadows coming in. Now, all the light coming in the window, it could have been done on a sound stage, and the light coming in the window could be at any level they want. Okay? So these light shapes coming in across here work as framing elements around her. Okay? And you could use the light to do that. That's what I would do. I'd put the light outside that window, and I'd put it right at the right angle that casts the light pattern that moved right around her, just to keep you looking in the frame, staying in the frame and looking at her. Okay. Again, this is a case in this image where her face is one direction, her eyes are looking the complete opposite direction, and there's a lot of designed movement in this image that I kind of drew over the top. So, like our little example of the bottle, and now we have a teacup with a handle on it. We tend to think that might be the back, or we can use it as a directional shape. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with that. Here's a great image, and you take a look at the different eye lines, the contrast creating different lines in this image. There's a whole lot of direction created and designed into this shot. Let me do a diagram here, and I'll point out these things because these are great. And I love looking at some of these painters and illustrators that really manage this so well. I think this is me. No, I'm not quite sure. Saul Tepper. It looks like Saul Tepper. But look at the direction of this. This contains you in the bottom. This keeps you in the bottom. His hand here, and then this shape here. So this contrast closes the bottom of the frame. The table in here, again, it closes you in there. The chair, see, look at the light on the top of the chair. This is a directional device. It's just there to give you that directional device, right? So it moves your eye up in here. You have this. Look at the papers and stuff on there. They're aiming in like that. So they're giving you this directional angle here. There's a guy standing here. If you look at his axis. Okay. And then we got the convicted guy. He's not too happy about it. His head is down. We have this light going across him like this. Okay. His hairline, all this is going back up and around. Up and around. We have his back kind of like this. We have this guy, look at his axis. He's turned facing this way. So his axis is going around him this way. Look at his hat. Coming in the direction like this, moving your eye back over this way. And there's another guy over here. His collar serves as another framing element that comes around. Then we got another guy over here, and these guys all create closure around him. Okay? In the background behind here, we have this shape that goes up like this. It comes up here, and then then we have a dark back here, and we have this guy at the edge of the frame. And he's looking out this way, because this hand is not his, it's somebody else's. And this guy's got a bright collar here. Right? So again, we got an eye line coming out here. We got a hand coming in here. We got this coming in here. We have this coming in here like this. All the way, we got all this closure over here, and we're not done yet. We go up to the judge, and we go to the piece of paper. See the angle that the piece of paper is like this? We got the judge's head kind of exploding right out of that, leaning this way. And then we have this guy's shoulders coming in. He's still trying to defend the guy, I guess. His arm is up here. We have these lines that kind of come splaying across here like this. And something like that. Line back here almost looks like a noose on the guy, doesn't it? This coming back here, we've got a little bit of more of this, the bench over here, the fence thing. Okay? So we have these axes, these strong axes that go like this. We have framing elements here. We have all of these lines coming out in here. We have this guy looking over this way, this eye line coming out here, and his hand coming back here, and this coming back in here, up to the table, up to the chair, back up into here, into the judge. The judge's eye line comes back over to this guy. And then these guys are all swirling around. There's a lot of movement in this image, and it all keeps you within the scene. Yeah, the question is there's convenient lighting, I guess. There's very convenient lighting in this illustration. And you know what? That again, that also is a really strong tool. And we don't see any of the light sources in here, but we could say that there's a light definitely above and behind the judge. There's lights above and behind the foreground characters, because we only get rim lights on them as well. So there could be a little bit of liberty in the lighting or multiple lights, but that in an illustration or a painting like this. You want to use the light and shadows or the light and dark patterns to move your eye around. So if you need multiple light sources, you do those. Yeah. I mean, you would do it in a film. That's what you want. That's what you get. You have to design and craft how you want the lighting to work in order that you get these dynamic shapes that move your eye around the image and keep you engaged in the image. What I want you to do for this next week is to grab a bunch of images. Now, they can be photos you've taken, they can be landscapes, they can be your friends, or they can be images from movies, they can be images from anything, okay? So just take a handful of images. I would say, at least a half a dozen. The more, the better. Because what I want you to do with these is just start breaking them down and go back over the pages in the PDF and read through that, look at the different types of lines, and look for these kinds of directional elements that move your eye or contain your eye within the image that you like. Okay, because generally, if there's something that you, if you land on an image that you like, there's usually something in there that's keeping your eye moving around. Although I will say, subject trumps almost everything. Okay, I mean, I could create concoct an image that would move your eye around, and put it next to an image of a cat, and you go, oh, cat. So that really, we laugh about it, but it's the truth. Subject has a lot to do with how someone will look at or look around your image. So keep that in mind. But on the other hand, if you're looking at a scene of some kind, a landscape or anything like that, just grab a bunch of images and start with images that compel you, that keep you in them, and then look for the things that are actually working and moving your eye through. Okay? Look for those things, and you may even find that once you get rolling and seeing these things in images, you may find some images that maybe you took some photographs thinking that you were going to paint that painting, and when you looked at it after a while, you thought, nah, I'm not going to paint that. Well, you can look at it through this idea of moving shapes to move your eye around, and feel free to move those shapes. Move those trees, move those bushes, change things around a little bit and create directional forces with those shapes. And you're going to find that you can create a pretty inspiring image out of something that initially you didn't find interesting. And that's the benefit of this, is because now you're crafting an image. You're crafting how to look at something because you're moving the viewer's eye through. So start with images you like and assess what's working. And the more you do that, the more you'll be able to look at any image and say, now I want to make this image work. What would I do? And you'll be able to apply the things that you've learned. So it's kind of a stepping stone. For this first step, just grab at least a half a dozen, maybe 10, 12 images, and the ones that you like, and try to see how they craft through line and through the lighting or shapes, that they're actually moving your eye around and keeping you involved in that image. For this week, what I want you to do outside of class, review the notes in the PDF, and I want you to look at least 6, more images the better, 6 to 12 images that you're drawn to. Now it can be paintings, they could be photos you've taken. You can go take photos, anything you want. But if you have some images that you particularly like, I want you to take those images, and you can take a piece of tissue or whatever, put it over that, or you can do it on a computer. And what I want you to do is I want you to identify the lines that are at work in those images. Because usually your eye will move around an image, and that's what will draw you in and keep you contained in the image. So I want you to look at some images that you like and see how these lines are working in that image or those images. Now, as you draw more, you're going to improve your observation skills. This is growing your assessment skills. You need to be able to look at images and assess what's going on in those images. So this is how we want to start looking at things, breaking them down and being a bit more analytic about why you're compelled to look at certain images. So the more comfortable you get at this, the better you'll be at seeing this in nature around you, in setting up still lives, in the pictures you take, and ultimately in the drawings you do.